Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the next iteration of Art Films, a collaboration with our partner, Ulite Arts. My name is Vivian Martel, and I'm the co-founder and co-director of O Cinema. I'm happy to be with you this evening to introduce our amazing filmmakers, but before I do, I'd like to highlight that this Sunday, O Cinema is bringing back their Conscious Cinema program, Awake and Aware, an event that features the film from the best-selling book, The Hidden Life of Trees, an amazing brunch by Green Gables Cafe, and the opportunity to engage with a research conservation biologist, Halia Eastburn, to talk about trees as a biological system. We hope you can join us. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Danielle Bender, the Cinematic Arts Manager at Ulite Arts, and directors Malia Scharf, daughter of Kenny Scharf, producer, writer, director, and of course, actor and of course, director, and Max Basch, a visual artist, director with degrees in philosophy and photography. Welcome to you both.
Thanks so much, Vivian. Oh, we have a car. Welcome everyone to tonight's post-film Q&A. As Vivian just mentioned, my name is Danielle Bender. I'm the Cinematic Arts Manager at Ulite Arts, and just want to plug in that we're going to be taking questions at the end of the conversation, so make sure to drop them in the Q&A feature and we'll get to as many as possible. Tonight, I'm joined by directors Malia Scharf and Max Basch, who will talk a little bit more about their film Kenny Scharf, When Worlds Collide, which you just tuned into. They're taking it from their car. I'm taking it from my home office. So welcome, guys, and congrats on the directorial debut.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're super happy and excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you. Where are you tuning in from?
We are actually having a little childcare. My sister met us at the beach, and so we said yes, we'll do it, and we're gonna hop in the car because we're really super happy to do this, and it was a double yay.
Is this Miami Beach or a beach elsewhere?
Oh no, we're in LA. We're in currently in Santa Monica.
Oh, nice. Sweet. Well, thanks for making time. We're super happy to have you here. We'll hop right into it because our audience just finished the film. Tell us a little bit about how you decided to make this film and take us through the process.
So about 11 years ago, I believe with a partner, Nathan, who had been filming Kenny in his studio, we decided to make a film. But I think originally I was really inspired to make this film about Kenny because I was inspired by his group of friends, and that I've always dreamt of having, this group of creative, free-spirited friends that I didn't really feel like I had in my life. So that was like one of the things that drove me to make the film. And then the other was that I really wanted people to see Kenny the way that I did as his daughter, and being raised with him, constantly making art. And like I noticed there was a lot of criticism around Kenny and his work since I was a little girl, and the film was in some way like, let me show you what I see. And so that was like the beginning. And then it's really challenging to make an independent film, first-time filmmaker, so it took a very long time, and I had Nathan and Beck, another person that I would work with. But then finally I'd have Max come in about 4 years ago. I got him hooked because I showed him all the archival, and we like moved forward. We made a reel, got a little bit of funding, and then we really spent the last 4 years editing and finishing the film. It was really challenging.
Yeah, I bet. 11 years is a pretty long process to undertake. I'm curious, how did you know when the film was complete?
Do you want to answer that?
Sure. That's a difficult question, right? Yeah, that's a good question. I think especially for a living artist, it's kind of this moment where I think you have to sort of revisit, what you imagine sort of that, I mean, that like that question sort of like bridges into the other question maybe, which is like sort of how you come up with sort of the end of the film, right? So like the end of the film, I think, was a big challenge for us, actually, you know, because it was this thing where when are we going to stop? What is going to cap sort of, you know, the structure of this film? And I think we tried to sort of like frame it around the Whitney show, but like, yeah, I mean, look, we could have never stopped. We could have kept filming. He's doing bigger things now than he was doing, you know, when we were sort of trying to close the film up. And he's a very much alive person, you know. So yeah, it was a difficult sort of scenario for us to resolve that. And one of the bigger challenges of making the movie, I think.
Yeah, I think we just had to be, the one of the keys that helped us wrap up the film was we were adding my voice. So I was there interviewing him and with him, but for a very long time we had my voice taken out. And one of the things that helped us wrap it up was when we added my voice just back in, just asking questions. And that really helped the film come to a full circle. And then we had Gabor Mate, like we understood that like, that we would close it with this, the childlike play, because that's something that was going to live on forever with Kenny. And we knew that there wasn't, like, Kenny is very much alive. He's making work. We didn't center the film around one thing. So that was the biggest challenge, is like finding the ending. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to put a bookend on something that's still ongoing. I mean, so maybe let's take a step back to, you know, the very beginning. It's heavily exploring New York in the 80s and what the art scene was like. Maybe talk a little bit about, and this was part of your interest, is his friendship groups and the people he grew up around. Can you talk a little bit more about what this time meant for Kenny and the artists that were creating around him?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it meant everything, truly, because he really found his people. You know, many of them left their homes and they were in search of like creative hubs and friends and like ways to express themselves. I know. So at that time when Kenny arrived in New York, he was really inspired by Warhol and the Factory. And he, arriving in New York and going to SVA, he just happened to meet Keith and Basquiat, who didn't go to SVA, but was there in the cafeteria hanging out. And it was this kind of kismet moment where the New York downtown, the downtown was just like completely just, it was really in bad shape, right? It was like, it was kind of scary. And then these friends and they weren't friends yet, but these people met each other and they kind of like fueled each other's creativity. And what was really inspiring to me, and I know for Kenny, was they were able to create with each other. And at that point, there were no galleries, they weren't in the art world per se, and there wasn't money. So it was just pure free creativity, which I think was something that really helped Kenny, Keith, all of them really just like express themselves to the max and create their own style. So I think it was a really key and important time in all of their lives, and it remains that way. You know, it's interesting, we look at the culture today and people are still obsessed with the 80s, and that kind of, there's a lot of inspiration that was drawn from that time. And I also think it's from like New York being this place that needed to be, you know, recreated, because it was kind of like a bombed city with, yeah, the downtown at least. So
yeah, I mean, at one point there was a quote where they're talking about Club 57, and they're saying that the artist said this era was about experimentation without expectation. That, you know, that seems like in line with what the ethos that Kenny is committed to. And like all that archival footage that you guys feature in this documentary, how did you go about getting that? Was Kenny recording all of this? How did you get access to it?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, no, that's just, how do we get access to the archive? Well, Kenny definitely provided, yeah, as much, you know, he opened sort of the floodgates for us to his archive, but he didn't really have, So yeah, a lot of his early video that you see in the film is kind of like his early video art, and people don't really, I think, aren't as familiar with that, but he made a lot of video art, so we kind of utilized that. And then beyond that, it was just, we had to be dug in and, you know, had to sort of get gritty and do some research and find people that also had footage specifically of the club scene. This guy Barry Shills actually was a great resource. He was, you know, one of the few people that we found that had a lot of footage specifically from Club 57. But yeah, it was just sort of like a pastiche of, you know, as much sources that we could find.
Yeah, the Haring Foundation, the Warhol Foundation, we tapped all of these places, and then Stephen Hager had a great voice interview. So, and then of course Kenny did a lot of home video and stuff, so that was really key. Yeah.
Well, it's less like recording everything you're doing, like me recording everything that's going on in my day to day, and more about an intentional video practice in many of these cases. So every artist should be recording everything going on in their life for their eventual art.
I mean, Kenny and his friends, they were definitely making, as silly as it was, they were definitely like making video art, you know, like they were intentionally definitely like filming themselves doing weird things.
I mean, you know, I think it's also important to acknowledge, I mean, they were like really young, you know, I mean, and again, like this sort of speaks to the ethos of the film, which is connecting to this sort of youthfulness, which just sort of bleeds through all of Kenny's work and a lot of the peers from that time too. And you know, they were like in college, and just, you know, early video was a brand new thing at the time, you know, they were fully just latching on to the idea of video. But I do think it's interesting, the analogy to today's world where everything is captured 24/7, and it just sort of lives in these sort of digital files that aren't as necessarily showcased, because when you have this opportunity to curate something really specific, like, you know, and you know that you only have a set amount of time to record that thing, sure, a lot more thought goes into it, a lot more intention, you know, goes into it. And yeah, I think that also, you know, speaks to that time too.
Yeah, 100%. I am just a total archive nerd, so I love watching any behind the scenes anything. But it was fascinating to see some of Kenny's, just like them hanging out in their apartment, them filming him painting his TV and making it just a object that's in the apartment. It was really fascinating. So amazing that they had that. Speaking of which, they were Kenny and Keith were roommates. You see the brotherhood that was formed between the two of them. You feel that camaraderie. Do you think they influenced each other's practice? And if so, how?
Yeah, I do. I think that they fed off each other somehow. You know, I know that Kenny was really inspired by Keith, making art when he started to paint in the subways. That was like the first time that Kenny, I think it was like a big light turned on. They were like, oh, we can do this in places that anyone and everyone can see. So I know that Kenny and I know Keith was also very inspired by Kenny as well. I think that, again, it was like a fuel, and I think that there was a healthy competitive like energy as well. I know that Keith kind of hit his success before Kenny, so that was also, as you see in the film, where that was challenging for Kenny. But I think that they both like really were somehow anchors and encouraging, and they just loved each other. So there's that aspect. And then I think like their styles, even though they were different, they were just encouraging each other just to create. And yeah, there was that healthy kind of like energy of never stop making stuff, both of them. And, you know, obviously Keith wasn't with us as long as he was only here for a short period of time, so he was as prolific as he could be while he was alive. And Kenny talks about that even to this day, where he's like, you know, he literally painted till he couldn't anymore. So yeah.
Well, you just brought up something interesting. One of the things that I was really interested in about community and access. So, you know, we see Kenny tagging on one guy's jacket, painting people's cars. I know someone who might be tuning in today from Miami that's had their car painted by Kenny. And it takes me back to the beginning of the film where you start to talk about Jean-Michel, Kenny and Keith, and they were all trying to make art less precious and more accessible. How does that, I keep using the word ethos, but how does that ethos make its way into Kenny's artistic practice, would you say?
Well, I mean, Kenny is all about, you know, art being for everyone, and like that's his generosity of spirit. Is like he literally just, I think 2 days ago, finished making a humongous mural for the mission, the LA mission in Skid Row, and so, you know, that is very much a part of what he believes in and what he thinks art should definitely not just be for a specific few. He wants it to be for everyone. He wants everyone to feel engaged and inspired, or just like that is so much a part of his what's that word? What is it when you're, it's like you're, I have mom brain. What is it? Okay, it's really a part of, like, if he were to write his
It's like his moral compass.
yeah, yes, but like on his website there's like a statement about his artist
artist
statement, I'd say, and like that's definitely in it. It's just really important to him and always has been, and I think it always will be. You know, the art establishment might not always agree with that, but it's very important to him. So
yeah, and you feel some of that friction when watching the film about himself and his fellow friends and artists that have problems with art being a commodity versus being something that's readily available and democratic. So that makes total sense. The next part, when we're in the film, we follow Kenny's journey to Miami in the 90s. Oolite Arts is Miami based, as is much of our audience. Maybe since you've lived that part, can you tell us a little bit about this time in Miami and what it might have represented to Kenny and your family?
yes, I mean, growing up in Miami was amazing. And Kenny left New York, you know, kind of wanting to change the scenery from a really sad time. So he loves nature, he loves the beach, and you know, for him, and he saw Miami at the time that was so like the Art Deco. He was really inspired by it, and it was, I think, before there was a big art scene in Miami also at that time. So yeah, it was just like a kind of a fresh new start, and growing up there was amazing. He had this incredible garden, and we went to the beach all the time, and like really connecting with the city and nature. And yeah, so Miami times were challenging in terms of career for Kenny. It was hard time, but in terms of the city and growing up there, it was amazing. So it was kind of a little bit of, yeah, some struggle on Kenny's side, and then family wise, like he really was able to keep it together for us. So
Yeah,
but yeah, we lived in Miami for a while, and I have a lot of good memories.
Miami's a wild world, and we're glad to have him here for a little bit. I want to touch upon something that you've brought up a couple of times that I kept noticing in the film. One of the reoccurring themes of the film is having a childlike nature, and it's addressed in several ways, whether it's nostalgia for adolescence, infantilism, Kenny's childlike joy. Talk to me a little bit about this. Why was that the pillar of this film for you all?
Yeah, that's a good question. Why was it the pillar? I mean, you know, it's I think that part of the challenge in making the film was, you know, wanting to connect sort of larger themes, you know, to Kenny's arc in life, and you know, what are sort of the takeaways of, you know, this artist's pursuit, you know, and I think there's just so much to take away from that, but it just felt like one of the main themes throughout the film and his work, and just something that resonated for us was this connection to be, you know, remaining childlike, or at least like connecting to that sense of ourselves, which I think truthfully a lot of people do lose connection with as they age. And it's just this idea of playfulness, and that's why, you know, again, we sort of cap the film with this quote about play, and I don't know, I just think ultimately it was like what resonated, you know, and something that we wanted to take away was connected to that. I mean, also Kenny, like from early on in his career, was really associated with fun, and you know, the idea of fun, and his art sort of represented that a lot. And there's this kind of misconception where it's just, you know, unilaterally fun, and so, you know, there was just a lot of like just sort of ideation surrounding how do we explore this idea of fun and play and connect it, you know, in a deeper sort of way. Does that make sense?
No, that makes total sense. I'm wondering, what was there ever a moment while y'all were filming, because again, it's over the course of 11 years, was there a moment when filming that your notion of what the story arc was shifted, especially for you, Malia, that you lived parts of this story? Was there ever a moment where you're like, oh, I didn't realize that because I was a little kid and now I'm have clarity?
It's funny. I feel like somehow I wasn't so surprised, or like nothing, it didn't really turn any corners like that. But in terms of the film, the challenge was really like fitting so much in of Kenny's life into the story, and making sure we talked about all the really important themes and events of his life. And so there wasn't so much that, it was just like, okay, what's so important? The aspect of fun, which, as Max was saying, for me, it's really in his work. It's like, that's the way he expresses himself. And then the environment, like just hitting these points and figuring out how to weave his life and career into these key points of who Kenny is as a person. Sorry. So, yeah, so that was really, there wasn't so many surprises, but the Whitney Museum was a beautiful kind of moment where we realized, like, even when Kenny describes the painting, the chaos and then the calm, like all of that, it's like, that's his life, and maybe that's our life. And so that was like a beautiful little kind of summary of what I feel Kenny's life and the story is a bit.
Nice. Obviously, it's a deeply familial film. It's a movie about your dad, Malia, and it's co-directed by a couple. What's it like working on such an intimate project with your family?
Well, you know, truthfully, like, it was really challenging because I think it was like the hardest thing was like finishing. So I think there was a moment where I don't think Kenny really was like, okay, yeah, you said you're going to make a film 11 years later. He wasn't involved. So, you know, we filmed him and we would come back to film him, but he wasn't so involved. So it was so amazing now to be able to share. But I think, and it was a gift to be able to be let in like that to Kenny's world. Like, he was so generous with his time and energy. But yeah, I think so. There was that beautiful part of it, and then the challenge again was finishing it and just like believing that we could get it done, and just having to, yeah, just to really close the film. It took a really long time, but overall it was really a beautiful experience, and right now to share it with my family, and it's really I love it. I'm so proud that I'm able to share this film while Kenny's alive.
Yeah,
exactly. It means a lot.
What about you, Max?
So the question is about the family element, and like maybe was it another challenge question? What the challenge?
It's more about what's it like working on, you know, intimate projects with family.
Oh yeah, the intimacy. No, I like the question a lot. Yeah, no, and the reason I bring it up, challenge, because I think it is kind of challenging, you know. I mean, I think that yeah, it was we we had to juggle, the dynamics at times, because but we made it work, and in the end it was ultimately super beautiful. But it's hard to work, with your partner, with your father, like, just like there's like certain boundaries that sort of get crossed between like professional world and personal. But when you finish something, it really feels like it was all worth it, like then it just, the sort of bond, definitely gets stronger if you can stick it through.
Yeah, and there's only one person that can make certain types of, every film can only be made by the person that made it, right? And even in moments where, you're talking to Kenny and he's talking about how Keith's death made him feel, no one else could have pulled that portion off and had him so vulnerable, because you were there with him on screen, breaking the directorial field and being there with him. So I thought it was so beautiful, and you really navigated that very intelligently. I have a couple more questions, but I do have some audience questions that are popping up. Someone named BP asked, what was it like for Malia to grow up surrounded by Kenny's art on everything? He seems like he was a devoted father. Did he have time for family if he was so obsessed with art?
Yeah, I mean, it was like when I was younger, it was actually, I had a period of time where I didn't like everything being painted. I wanted to be the same, when maybe you're a certain age and you're like, oh my God, don't pick me up at school with this painted car. It's so embarrassing. Because my dad literally painted everything in our house, and cars, I mean, like TV, telephone, everything. But as I got older, I really appreciated it, and I do today. So that's what it was like growing up with. And Kenny was always very devoted. He really, as a father, he somehow made time to make his work every single day and come home and play with us and, take us to school. I mean, he was very present. So I'm really, lucky.
Yeah. And at what age did you get to be like, okay, fine, my dad's stuff is kind of cool?
I'm like trying to think. Maybe once I was in middle, maybe like high, I don't remember. I don't know. I think like I went to Beverly High, and it wasn't a place that none of my friends were like, had parents that were artists. So I feel like once I left school, it was easier to see myself in the world and be like, oh, this is amazing. I am so lucky. Yeah.
Well, you started off the documentary with some footage of you as a baby, and you both have now recently had a child of your own. How does being a parent impact your practice as a creative, other than being tired and exhausted all the time?
Well, it's been 3 months, so it's quite new. I know Max is working nonstop, like he's been like pushed, and I'm kind of really in the phase of taking big care of baby time. But I mean, both, we do it together. But I definitely feel inspired to create more art that's for children's education, for like future, just the betterment of our environment and the world. And I'm feeling inspired by that. Having a little baby and seeing the state of the world, it just makes me want to be making work that in that direction. And yeah, I think Max is just working very hard to support us. So I don't know if he wants to share anything about that.
No, I mean, having children, I think, to each their own. I think it ultimately, I don't see how it can't inspire creativity if you're tapped into that world. It's just all the more purpose.
Great. Well, I have one last question for y'all. Oolite has obviously a cinematic arts program. We give funding to filmmakers making their first micro-budget narrative feature. Obviously, this was y'all's first, not narrative, but documentary feature. Do you have any advice for first-time feature filmmakers, since this is your first go at a feature film?
Yeah, I would say make something that you care deeply about, are very passionate about, because that will push you through. Otherwise, it's challenging. So like make something that you really, really care about, and let that carry you through.
Yeah, I mean, definitely have to be passionate on like a more, I don't know, kind of like tangible advice or something, you know, but I feel like there's, yeah, just, it's a hard question. If I could just like sort of condense like a lot of different things into like a few things, you know, I feel like it's, yeah, take your time. Don't like worry about money, even though you need money, and try to meet a producer that, you know, has connections, you know, like network. You have to network, you have to meet the right people, you have to like get a little bit lucky, maybe with your story, get a little bit lucky with who you meet. But like it's a combination of a lot of different things, you know, like, but ultimately the story is the most important part. So if you have a story that I think, yeah, you really gung-ho about, then you can manifest the rest of the shit.
Yeah, and don't give up. Eventually when you finish, it's the best. So
but definitely go out and meet people, you know, like go out and try to meet people and make those connections, because it's word of mouth is, you know, stronger than anything else.
Yeah, and find a really good team. That's also really important. It was just Max and I. It would be nice to have had a little bit bigger of a team.
So
if
do
you have more money, if you have more money, you can have a bigger team.
Get more money, get a bigger team, and find good people. And so do you guys have plans for, I know I said last question, but I guess one more. Do you have plans for what's next, or we're riding this wave for now and seeing where it takes us?
You have a narrative thing plotted out,
Yeah,
right?
Malia's gonna make an animated series sometime in the next 5 years, because I keep telling her how long that's gonna take, but she's trying to, it'll be the next 10-year project, or maybe hopefully less. But animation is insanely laborsome. And me, yeah, I don't know yet, you know, like we'll see. I was trying to maybe make this little film in the fall, like a short, but the next feature, yeah, like Malia's saying, it has to be something that just really strikes, you know, at the core. It's a lot.
Awesome. Well, we're going to keep our eyes open for y'all, of course, especially for Malia, since you have lived in Miami. We always try to keep everything in the family. So let us know what you're up to. If you want to put in the chat where people can follow y'all, if you're so inclined, please feel free to. But otherwise, thank you both for coming on and talking to us about your amazing film. And we absolutely loved it, and happy to hear your insights on it.
Thank you so much. This was really great. You can, everyone here probably watched the film, so it's still playing, and keep watching it. Share with your friends, and I'll share where you can follow us.
Yeah, support independent filmmakers by sharing our film.
Mm-hmm.
Where can people watch it next if they missed the screening but watch just the Q&A?
It's on
iTunes,
like all
Amazon, Vudu, like all the platforms.
It's on all streaming platforms at this point.
Amazing. Cool, guys. Well, we'll let you go enjoy the daylight in LA and get back to baby. And we'll
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Danielle.
All right, happy night. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Still on video?
Mm-hmm. I'm just putting.
Did you mute it?